in Perry's article, A Strap-On Party for the People, they describe femmes as the hostesses are femme lesbians who are obviously well-versed in the art of deploying their feminine wiles. They wear slinky dresses and suits. They wear slinky dresses and skirts in pink, purple, red, and black. They strut around in high heels. They wear makeup. They not only look like girls, but act like them, too. She acknowledges that people tend to perceive her as being innocent and sweet. So like I feel like that article is about gay people at a gay strap-on fucking party. Like I don't know what gayer event you're gonna go to. Like I'm going to a strap-on orgy today. You know, like and yet like there's this idea of femmes wearing skirts, they're wearing high heels, you know, they're wearing makeup, so they're constructed in like an aesthetic way, you know, which is different from other genders. And then, you know, like they not just look like girls, but they act like girls. So like it's because we are like straight people that we are femmes, you know? And because we're innocent and sweet, it is important that like butch and femme have a history together, you know? Like, but it's not that we should, I think it's important also that we don't construct our identities around one another. We can recognize that history while like exploring whether or not we have futures that will continue being linked, you know? But like another one, in Boots of Leather, Slippers of Gold, The History of the Lesbian Community, by Madeline Davis, she says that all language for talking about butches and femmes is inadequate. And I think that that's like a really important kind of thing. I found that a community or a queer politic often like suppresses like the idea of femmes ever having sex with other femmes. I recently did an interview with a couple of femmes, and one of the questions was, do you know any femmes who have sex with other femmes? And her answer was no. You know, like it was like, no, I don't know. And one of like her ideas is about the fact that like that might be a reaction to how dominant society constructs like femme identity as like the popular discourse on lesbians. You know, like to be a lesbian in a heterosexual, you know, society is to be either like so butch that you could be considered a man, or to be a femme with another femme, i.e. the L word, lesbian porn, things like that, you know. Where femmes are assumed to be like an acceptable alternative to more masculine, like lesbian identification categories, like on TV or in pornography. And like there's social stigma that like comes with femmes who fuck other femmes, you know, like assumed that like you're there for show, you know, you're there to impress men, you know. Like I feel like that's something that's always stopped me from like showing attraction in other femmes. Which makes me really sad because I think femmes are super hot and super great, you know, but like, and it's interesting that like so many femmes think femmes are super hot and super great but never get around to fucking them, you know? And I think like there's been so many times on this campus where I'm like, I'm not getting laid because I'm femme. I know that that's the reason. I know that if I was anything else, I would have some sex right now. But like, because I am a femme, like there are just less people who are consistently interested on that level, which really hurts and does take a toll on, which is, I think the thing that makes me most constantly question my gender.
I also feel like it's there's a competition component. That's just like, that's super like, oh, this is my competition. We can't be attracted to each other because we're against each other because we're trying to get this butch looking person to get with us. And like, oh, she's super hot and therefore it's a threat. Instead of like I just like to look at you type of thing. Like, or I just want to fuck you type of thing.
That's really true.
It's like, I feel like that can't necessarily, I don't know, I also feel like in terms of like hair as a component to feminist, that like brings in another thing, because like I like people with really short hair who like are femme or butch or whatever, and I feel like that like hair as a marker for queerness also like can become a marker for feminist in a certain way, like how like, so like I have this like short whatever versus like a long poofiness, so like this haircut makes me look more queer than the one I had before, and like how that also influences like how femmes see each other, and like validation, like who is more femme or who is more queer.
I also think that it's interesting that like femmes don't make that leap from being like, oh, I know she's so hot, I bet she's competition, to, oh, she's so hot and I want to have sex with her. Like it seems that seems odd to me, you know? Like,
right, especially because you're both all of each other's business anyway.
It's
Like, it's
true.
not like you don't see each other looking at each other.
Exactly. I gotta do a lot of looking to feel like
the
the
fucking
competition.
titties all out. You're already looking anyways.
Exactly. You know, look at all her hair, all that makeup on. I don't see why it's
You
not
probably spent a
like.
whole hour on it. Like,
Exactly.
so.
You know, it's like, but like, why would that make me feel like you were a competition, or instead of like I was competing for you? Like, I don't even know like what that means.
I just think there's still so much acrimony, like, between women-identified folks, just, like, as a general, like, across, like, all of everything. I just think it's, like, still a really, really big part of, like, those little forces that encourage us to self-destruct.
Yeah.
But there are two things that I was thinking of. One was that, you know, I wish, I can't speak to it, but I wish that somebody was here to speak to, or if somebody maybe wants to speak to, you know, notions of like male femininity and like being male femme identified, or however you want to phrase that, but maybe not being woman identified, but identifying as femme. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is kind of like the intersection of like class and sex work, and like somebody like that not being gay, because like you definitely mentioned, right, get to it, because you mentioned, you know, what did you say? What did you say? Two femmes like being about catching attention and being about like feeding into some type of either, you know, fantasy, and like specifically like a male fantasy. But I also think that then, you know, there's this other aspect of it, which is like, I don't know if anybody else has been to the strip club, but I've been to the strip club and I've had a lot of different experiences with women dancing for me, or women whose attention I tried to get, or women who've been like, get the fuck off of me, you know. But it's very interesting because, you know, just thinking about something that doesn't have to do with my own identity or anybody else that I know, like ladies on the stage who, you know, are definitely paid to perform, but then also may have like a preferred, you know, lifestyle, and may very well like only be sleeping with, you know, other like female-bodied folks, or, you know, some other spectrum of that. So then thinking like, because folks not only, you know, might do that in their spare time, but also get paid to be sexy, and also like paid to be sexy with women, then there's no way that, you know, they can actually like hold that identity as something that's real, or like that, you know, somehow because like somebody might be engaged in like paid work, or like paid like sexuality-based sex work, you know, whatever, sex acts, like all of that shit, that somehow then they don't have a sexual identity because they just fucking get paid, so they just fuck. You know, I think it's a lot more complicated than that, but I think that a lot of the times, you know, what type of like material exchange is going on for sex kind of like affects that like validity of like who has what identity, and like what we're, you know, reading people as such. So, and I also think that, you know, in terms of like the ways that people present as femme, like I know I love to wear some high heels, but then it's like, I can't be a femme and wear high heels because then I'm a hooker, but what if I'm a fucking hooker and a femme and wear high heels, you know? And then what happens then? So I think it just, you know, it speaks to the ways that we, again, you know, I don't know, because it's also, I mean, I understand like wanting to hold on to like notions of like some community that isn't hetero, but I also think that like a lot of people have sex with a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons, like across different periods of time. So, yeah.
As we'll talk about in the very next episode, sex and disability, you know, like people who are disabled are assumed to be asexual, like in a lot of ways. Like they're assumed to not be able to have sex, not be good lovers, you know, like not do X, Y, and Z in bed, you know? And like, yeah, I have physical limits, but I get down, you know, like, it's down. So, and I feel like as a femme, like, who is disabled, like, heels are the things I resent most, you know, like that, like, compulsion towards heels. Like, I wore heels last night, and my feet are, I don't know why I did that. And like, but like, on the, like, the tip of, like, of sex work, like, I feel like that was the ableism that like I experienced, like while, like I associate wearing high heels with like the times in my life where I've had to exchange sex for money, but also like the many more times when I've had to exchange sex for other things, like a place to stay, or, you know, food, silence, you know, like for privacy, like exchanging sex for like my own personal privacy. And like the sort of like femininity I had to engage in those spaces is like different, I think, than my femme identity, you know? Like that was very much me being feminine, like more than it was me being a femme. Yeah, but we'll say more about that in the upcoming episode, Queer Sex and Sex Work. So there we go.
I mean, I definitely present myself on a more masculine spectrum, but I feel like, you know, I also identify as femme, and like the way I know my body is not through like clothes that touch my skin, but like through clothes that I'm comfortable in, which happen to be like bigger and maybe like seem more masculine presenting, but I definitely, you know, the way I understand my femininity and the way I've always understood it is through the way I'm most comfortable with, which is, you know, like bigger clothing. Like
I never really wear jeans ever. Anyone who knows me knows I just don't do that, which is fine. Today, I was going somewhere and I was with two who I'm very close with, and they were just like, "Oh my God, Jimmy, you look like such a dyke today. You look especially dykey." And I'm just like, there are people I consider like femme allies, whatever that means, or like really good like queer friends of mine, and it's just like even like little things like that people like within my own community like say to me is just like I feel like that's like for a second just like taking it away, giving it back, and taking it away, giving it back, and like needing like me challenging myself to like not need validation from like masculine spectrum or like gender queer or like I forget that word, whatever people so like to validate who I am, and like how I feel like that's such a problem. Like, you look so gay today, or oh, you look so femme today, or you look that's so faggy, and like I wonder like within our own communities, like when we're gonna challenge each other not to think that way, because I think that's like the main problem in terms of like all the different kinds of phobias, like femmephobia, transphobia, like everything that exists just like between us. Just like I think the only way that's gonna change is if we like force ourselves to like unlearn these like super essentially homophobic understandings of what being gay means.
I've had a lot of partners tell me that I emasculate them, and like I think I've incorporated that into my like femme identity, or like they felt like I was more masculine than them. I was too masculine to be a femme, you know, like I feel like I've heard like a lot of variations on that theme, you know, like too masculine to be a femme, but I feel like femme is in the heart for me, like in a lot of ways, you know, like I'm a femme because like I believe in tough, strong, angry, nasty, fuck you up kind of womanhood. You know, like that is the way that I'm a woman, and that is the way that I'm a femme, you know? And if that's like masculine, like I don't see why femininity is like exclusively not masculine, you know? Like I feel like the way that I am a femme is like most reminiscent, and like the people I look up the people I look up to most when like constructing what I think I'm gonna wear or what I think is cute are drag queens, and they've always been drag queens, you know, like on like in one way or another, you know, just because like there's just such an intentional like, particularly stage performing drag queens, you know, like just such an intentional like styling of one's body, you know, like whether it be for beauty or like not, you know, like, but like an intentional styling of the body to get a reaction that I desire, you know, like, and I feel like for me, like the way I dress is about being in control, you know, like it's about me controlling the way I look rather than letting it be a source of randomness.
It's really weird because I came here identifying as femme, and last year, my first year at Hampshire, I had a lot of people, or I just heard the things like masculinity is threatening, like your masculinity is threatening me and stuff, which one I found really weird because I feel like putting masculinity as like something, or just like thinking of femmes and women as like people who are weak. I just have never really understood that because all the women where I come from are really, really strong people. And so I feel like, when I kept on hearing that, I started to like think about my masculinity and think about like checking like the masculinity that like people checking the way that masculinity is making the people around them feel. And I feel like I really like weirdly like that started like this denial of like oh, I can't be femme because I have to like think about this. That's why I like needed like more time to think about it, because it's not a complete thought, but I just like, it's something that I just started like thinking about when you guys had Femme Day, the Femme Night, and right, or at some point afterwards, I remember Cyree, you saying to me, well, I'm kind of sad that you didn't come and stuff like that, or something to that effect, and I was like, wait, I could have come to it?